I'm finally back with that beginner sewing project I promised you months ago. So, sorry, things just got crazy. But anyway, I finally came up with something that I thought was interesting and easy to do. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to make one of these super cute Raggy Edge quilts. Okay? These are so much fun to make, and they're easy to customize. You know, you can pick up a cute print fabric for boys or girls, and they all love them. And you can actually make a little one in a couple of days. It's not a very time-consuming project. So, the hardest part is the first part, and that is planning your quilt. So, who do you want to make the quilt for? The sizes that I use most of the time. Oh, and I have a printable about this that's got all the charts and measurements and requirements, and this is on my Facebook page, Mom Does Stuff. So I'm going to drop a link down at the bottom. Hop over there and get the printable. It's got all the fabric requirements and whatever you'll need for each different quilt. So the first thing is to figure out, who do you want to make this quilt for? Sometimes I'll make a baby receiving quilt size, which is like small, just enough to wrap a little one in. A crib quilt at 28 by 50, which just covers the top of the mattress. There's nothing to stick in the sides. A toddler bed, which uses a crib mattress, but I added a little bit, make it 40 by 50, so there's a little bit of overhang on the sides of the bed. The toddler lovey quilt, which is like for a 2 to 3 to 4 year old to like carry around. That's actually what this size is that I made. And it's like just big enough for a kid to haul around and not be in the way. A child nap quilt for like when they want to lay on the couch and take a nap, or some of them even take it to school and cover up on their kindergarten mats. Then you get into the bigger sizes. An adult nap quilt, or lap quilt, which is just enough to wrap over your lap and your legs while you're sitting there watching TV. An adult nap quilt is a little bit bigger. That's if you want to lay on the couch and you want something to cover you from your shoulders to your feet. Another option is just measure a blanket or a quilt that you already have that you like the size of. Okay? So once you pick your size, then you have to pick the size of your squares. Now on this quilt, I went with the middle, the 5-inch finished squares. How do you decide? Well, I usually go as large as possible, if possible, but the benefits are, if you go with the 4-inch finished, you start with a 5-inch cut square. That gives you a much scrappier look because you're going to have a lot more squares. And the other thing is, if you go with that size, you can use some of these cute little pre-cuts. This is called charm squares, and they're already cut to 5 inches. And they come in these packs, so you have all these different coordinating fabrics together, and half your job is done. If I pick a character fabric, like this Minnie Mouse fabric, that's what got me started here. I measure to see how big a square can I use and still get, you know, a good picture of the main part. If you've got some fabric that's got huge pictures on it and you use a 5-inch to 4-inch square, it's going to get like just a head or something. So go by your fabric and look to see what you know, which size square will fit best. Now for the Minnie Mouse sample, like I said, I used the 5 to 6-inch square. I'm going to make the toddler lovey size. So, I look on my chart here, and I see that for a 5-inch, 6-inch cut, 5-inch square, I'm going to need 30 total blocks, okay? Every block has got 3 layers. Now, what we're going to look at first is the top layer. Whatever you need, like for my fabric on the top, I'm going to need 1 yard total. Okay, when I went to the store, I picked out 3 different fabrics that I liked. Okay, since I need 1 yard total, I can cut that into thirds. So I would need about 1/3 of a yard of each fabric, and I would probably go ahead and get a half just in case I mess up. There's not that much different price-wise between a half and 1/3. So once you have decided your size and your squares, you look on the chart and it's going to tell you how much fabric you need. Whatever that top is, divide that by how many choices you have. Okay? Then you have a middle layer. I'm just using a white quilting cotton for my middle. You can also use a flannel in the middle, but you're going to need the total yard for this because you're going to need 30 squares of this. And then for my back, I got this cute pink flannel. You do need a flannel for the back so it'll fray, make that raggedy edge. So look on your chart and figure out which ones you're going to use. Now when you're planning, there's also one of these grid sheets in the package that's just little squares made in Word. Draw off how many squares you need. Like for this quilt, my chart said it was going to be 5 by 6, so I drew off 5 across and 6 down. Now I planned out how I wanted to arrange my squares. I wanted to put the Minnie Mouse and then a pink, and then a Minnie Mouse and a pink, and a Minnie Mouse at the end. And then for the next row, I was going to alternate the white, the Minnie, the white, the Minnie, and the white. So I filled in my chart. Now I go back and count. According to my plan, what I wanted to do, I'm going to need 15 Minnie Mouse squares and 6 pink and 9 white. So I'm going to need more Minnie Mouse fabric than I do the pink and the white. Okay? In fact, just about half of it. So I would get half a yard, maybe even 3/4 of the main fabric, and then 1/3 to a half of the other two. I just always like to have extra. You can always make something else cute, you know, a pillowcase or whatever, but that top fabric, you don't want to get halfway in the quilt and then you don't have enough because you go back and they may not have that particular one anymore. So go ahead and buy a little extra there. Okay? And then, like I said, you're going to need the white cotton or some other coordinating color. Pick up whatever color goes with your fabric. And then the flannel. And you can see on the quilt how those back fabrics are going to show through. So if I had picked, probably should have, like if I had picked a black cotton for the middle, that would give it a splash of black in there. That would have been cute too. So just go see what you like, have fun. And then now I'm going to show you how to put all these things together. Okay? Okay, now we're ready to prepare the fabric. If your fabric has any wrinkles in it, you need to iron that. A lot of people like to pre-wash their fabric. That's fine too. A lot of people swear against it. I'm not going to get into the wash, pre-wash, don't wash argument in a beginner video. If you feel like you want to wash it, go ahead. You do need to iron out the wrinkles before you start cutting, because one little wrinkle in there will make your square a lot different. You also need to straighten your cut edge. Let's see. I think I've already straightened these edges, but if it's noticeably off, you'll need to cut it. I don't really see anything noticeable. If you can tell that it goes way off like that, then just get your ruler and line up one of your lines with the selvage edge. That's going to be your straight point. And see, and this is pretty straight. Okay, now like we said, I decided I needed 15 of these Minnie Mouse squares for my project, and I want to cut them 6 inches so that I can have a 5-inch finished square. Now I normally I have a 6-inch ruler, so I just lay it across here, but I wanted to show you how to cut your squares if you don't have a ruler that wide. All right, if you want 6 inches, put the 6-inch line at the edge here and then make a mark with a pencil over here. Now come down to the other end or close to the other end, make another mark, and then connect those two marks. That way you'll get it the same distance all the way across. And then I'm going to make another mark here at the fold line, just because I like my squares. If you cut right, you sew right, because we're going to be using the edges to guide our seam allowance. Okay, now, so this is a 6-inch strip, and I'm going to cut and first I need to get on to whoever used my fabric scissors for something else, because they are not as sharp as they used to be. But that's another lesson. Okay, now I have it 6-inch wide this way. Cut off your selvage. This tight part right here where there's print on it, and you can see there's little dots. You can tell where the selvage is when you look at it. So I'm going to cut that off. Sometimes it's like a 1/2 inch, but that's all right. It's just woven differently from the rest of the fabric, and you don't want that in your square. It will throw things off. Okay, now I'm ready to open this up and measure off 6 inches this direction. Same thing. Okay, 6 there, 6 at the bottom, and connect. Just like that. Okay. Option 2, if you have a rotary cutter and a mat, swack at them. Option 3, make a template. Cut a little piece of cardstock, or cut a piece of cardstock the size you're going to need, and then lay it down and cut, 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 or trace and cut, just like this. There you go. Do not pick up your first square and lay it on top of here and use that for your next pattern. Because if you get off on one square, then the next time you get off, it's a little bit more off, and it just multiplies itself when you're quilting. So always start with a pattern or a ruler for every square. Okay? Now I'm going to stop, and I'm going to cut 15 squares of the Minnie Mouse. I'm going to cut my 9 squares of the white hearts and 6 squares of the pink polka dots. That's going to be the fabric for the top. Now, the white, I'm going to need 30 squares of this, and I'm going to need 30 squares of this. Okay? So let me go cut, and I'll be right back. Okie dokie. We are just about ready to sew. We have planned our quilt. We have prepped the fabric by ironing it, washing it if you want to, but definitely ironing it. And we have carefully cut it into whatever size square you decided to use. Now we're going to stack these, because if you pre-stack them, that makes it so much quicker to sew. Alright, this is my bottom square, so I'm going to pick one up and turn it right side down. Okay? You want the pretty side to the bottom. Then the middle square, whatever you're putting in the middle layer, put that on top. And then your top square goes up here just like this, okay? Now that's a quilt sandwich. We got that one done. So let's do another one. We're going to put the backing, the flannel backing, the white middle, and then one of the prints, okay? And I kind of offset mine when I stack them. You can see the corner up there. That way it's easier to pick up. Pink side down. Middle side. and then the top. And I'm going to do this for all of the squares, however many total squares you're supposed to have. The quilt that I'm making is supposed to have 30 total. So I'm going to have 15 of the Minnie Mouse. I think it was 9 of the hearts and 6 of the pink polka dot. I have to look at my chart again. So let me go ahead and stack these, and we'll go to the sewing machine and I'll show you how to quilt them and assemble the quilt. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, it's finally time for what everybody's been waiting for. I know. The first thing we need to do is quilt our little sandwiches. And I say a sandwich because it's got the backing, the middle, and the top layer. What we want to do here when we quilt it, this is to hold the 3 together. And you can quilt this so many different ways. You can do stripes across your thing. I just do a corner to corner on both sides. So we're going to make an X. I usually just eyeball it, but if you don't want to do that, fold it together like this and pinch it all along that seam. Give it a nice squeeze, and that's going to give you a line that you can follow all the way down. So we are going to raise the needle, and I see that my needle has come unthreaded. Okay, well, let me thread this needle real quick through here, around, and under there. If you are unsure about how to thread this machine, I have a whole video about that. You can just, in fact, I'll drop a link down at the bottom of that video because I don't want to mess up my close-up vantage point that I so carefully arranged before I got started here. Okay? Alright, like I said, if you want to see the threading of the machine, I have a whole other video, and that link will be in the bottom. Okay, we have needle up, we have thread in the needle, so we're going to put the corner right there under that needle, and then I always hold my tails out to the back. Can you see what I'm doing? Yes, I think you can. And then I manually turn the wheel towards me until I get the needle in there. And then, okay, as far as settings go, I have, hang on, the settings on my machine. This wheel I set to number 10. Okay, that's a center, and that's a pretty long stitch. My tension right here, I've got it at 4. I tested this before I did this, so I know this works good for these 3 fabrics, but always do a little test strip to make sure. If your fabric gets all scrunchy, then your tension's too tight. If your thread is just loopy-loop everywhere, then it's too loose. You need to tighten it up. Higher numbers make it tighter, lower numbers make it looser. Okay? Now, let's get back down here where we were. And I'm just going to sew corner to corner, following that little folded line that I did. And I'm not going to be in any big, huge hurry. I'm just going to let it ease through my fabrics. Don't stress out about staying right on that line. Just get close. When this gets to be a blanket, you're not going to notice it being off a fraction. Okay, now I'm at the end of that one. I daisy chain my squares. This saves you some time. So lift your needle back up using the wheel and lift the foot. Pull that out just a little. Some seamstresses don't even pull that out. They just get started with the next one. So once again, if you want to make yourself a line to follow, press this down and then insert the next corner and slight tension towards the back. Sink it. Give it some juice. And we're going to go corner to corner one more time. If it gets a little wonky, just straighten it up. You don't ever want to pull back on this because that will mess up your motion forward. You are just guiding very gently. Okay, up with this, up with the needle, and next one. Corner to corner, pressing it down. Sinking your needle. Going straight across. Okay, I'm going to do all of my squares just like this, and then I'll come right back and I'll show you how to go back the other way, okay? Okay, now you have a chain like this. They're all attached. So the first thing you're going to do is just snip them apart. If you want to snip them sort of close and discard that extra thread, it will save you some time in the long run because you're going to want to clip those off anyway. So I try to clip as I go, getting off the excess. Not too short because you don't want it to come unraveled, but just while you have it, snip it and all the way down your chain. Now, what we're going to do when we get all these snipped is we're going to make the next part of the X the same way. We're just going to go from opposite corner to corner. Just like we just did on every single square. So, we're going to take this square and now fold it like this to get the crease on the opposite side. And we're going to carefully place it under there. And hold your tails so they don't get sucked up under there. And now we're going back. Just like so. Slow and easy does it. You're not in a race. Okay, and creasing it. Okay, lift and tug a little bit. If you try to pull this back and it's tight, you can't pull it, then you need to back off your needle a little bit. Just go to your wheel and loosen it up a little bit, okay? And here comes another one. And I'm going to do this to every single square that I've already done the first line on. And this is what's different about this kind of quilt. Normally when you make a quilt, you sew all your top squares together and then you quilt it. But this time we're quilting first and then we'll be ready to assemble the squares. So it's going to be fun. Let me go ahead and make the rest of the X on all these and I'll come back and we'll assemble these into rows. And then we're going to put the rows together and you'll be done except for the clipping, which is the really fun part. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, we're ready to put our blocks together. Now when we sew these together, we're going to need a 1/2 inch seam allowance. That means we want 1 inch from the seam line to the edge of the fabric. There are little markings back here on your plate that show you how the inches, what part of an inch that is. And right there is the 1/2 inch. Now sometimes it's hard for me to stick with it, so what I do is I just take a little piece of washi tape or some kind of tape that you can peel up rather easily. And I'm just going to put this right along that 1/2 inch line. Now I can see where the edge of my fabric is supposed to be. Okay? Can you see that? You can see how I put the washi tape on there along the line? Okay. Now, going back to my pattern that I have, I check what I wrote down for my first row, and I need a Minnie, a pink, a Minnie, a pink, and a Minnie Mouse. So I'm going to start with one Minnie Mouse, and I'm going to pick up a pink square. Now you want to sew these together with the backs facing each other, okay? This is the opposite of what you normally do. When you normally sew, you usually put the right sides together because you don't want your seam to show. Well, this is just the opposite. We do want the seam to show. So we're going to put the flannel sides together and then line up your raw edges as best you can. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be alright, because when we put this all together and wash those seams, it's all going to fuzz up and get bulky, and you're not going to notice if it's off a little bit. But you do want to be careful, because if you get off too often, then you're going to wind up with a mess towards the end. Alright, now put these under here. You see I have my raw edge lined up with the edge of my tape right there, and I'm just going to sew, and you are guiding, you're not pulling, guiding, not pulling, keeping the edge right there along that tape. And you see it's getting a little wavy right here. Just kind of fiddle with it a little bit, snug it up. It's going to be fine. Okay, and then you're done with this one. Bring it out. You can use your side cutter if you want to. Okay, so here's a Minnie and a pink. Now I need another Minnie Mouse. So I'm going to grab this Minnie and I'm going to put it flannel sides together. Straighten them out, smooth them down, pull those threads back there so they don't get knotted up under here. Line it up at the 1/2 inch allowance, sink your needle, and then I'm going to hold my tails there so they don't get pulled up under there. And ease it right on through there, keeping to that 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, and up, cut it off on the side. Alright, I'm ready for a pink now. Okay, back to where we are, where we were. Sorry, I had a little interruption. We're going to sew another pink polka dot, put the flannel sides together, and lining the edges up next to that 1/2 inch marker on the washi tape. Oh, see, that's what happens when you don't sink your needle. I have come unthreaded again, but that's okay. We'll just thread her up again real quick, just like this, through the front of the needle. Go on through there. There we go. Okay. Make sure we don't get a tangle here. Okay. Now, and this time I will put my needle in so that I don't lose it. Okay. Keeping that 1/2 inch, readjusting, making sure my raw edges are fairly even. See, I'm getting a little bit of a dip there, but that's okay. I'm just gonna sew right on over that. You know, normally those things when you're sewing, you cannot have that. But like I'm saying, this project is incredibly forgiving on those little bends and bubbles. Okay, so I've got a mini, a pink, a mini, a pink. I need one more Minnie Mouse. So, flannel sides together, raw edges even, line it up on the 1/2, okay. Sink the needle and roll on. Okay. Now, we have our first row finished, okay? Now, my second row is white, mini, white, mini, white. So I'm going to start with a white heart square, get a Minnie Mouse square, and I'm going to put flannel sides together. I'm just going to do this all again down the row for white mini, white mini, white. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and sew the rest of my rows together, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how to join the rows. Okay? Alright, I'll be right back. Okay, I've got a couple of rows done, so I'm going to stop here and show you how to sew the rows together. Now, if you really want to be a neat sewer, seamstress, sewist, whatever, you could go iron these seams open at this point, but I'm just going to finger press them as I go. Now, this is my top row, and this is going to be my second row. So I'm going to sew them together with the flannel sides facing each other once again. Okay, and I'm going to check this and be sure that when I open it up, anything that's supposed to be right side up will be. Like the hearts, I don't want to sew them on so that they're upside down. So if I sew it like this and open it, it's going to be fine. Okay, line up your seams first. So find these two seams, open them up with your fingers, and press them both open. Okay, so I have them open, and then I'm going to smooth it out towards the end, and then I'm going to place this under here, and I'm going to let my presser foot down, sink my needle. Now, this is my favorite friend at this point. It's a little mini spatula. I think I got it at Walmart. And I'll show you in just a second where that's going to come in handy. Okay, let's ease up here to our first seam. Okay, I'm watching underneath to be sure that this one stays open. Once you get to where you're on your flatbed, you can open it up and press it down again, because sometimes as it goes up over this, it folds that seam back the other way, and you don't want that. So let's get it to where it's flat. Alright, and I'm going to press that down, ease it this direction. Now, if you get to this point, sometimes I do, and this pops up, this is where you use your spatula to hold it down. Don't stick your finger under there, okay? I like this little rubber spatula because if it does get under there, right at the tip, it's not going to break the needle and make the needle fly up in your face, because that's what will happen. That's why you don't ever sew over a pin. If you pin yours, then you pull your pins out, like right here, before it goes under the needle. Don't sew over pins. This needle will break and that piece could fly up and hit you in the eye. I've never had it happen, but I've had one hit me in the face and it wasn't fun. Okay, first seam done. Alright, I'm going to go a little bit further. Now, going to press, take my foot off the presser foot, because off the go pedal, and going to tuck this under like it should be. Flatten it out. Make sure my seams are pretty much on top of each other. And go again. Like I said, use the spatula to hold this down while you run it over there, watching your 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, here comes another one. We're rolling here. Okay, I'm going to carefully lay those down like they should be. Go slow because that's a lot of fabric to try to get under there. So just ease it through there. If you've ever had to make a quilt all by hand, you will realize that the sewing machine doesn't have to go at warp speed to be convenient. Alright, getting close now. You see how it's got this little bubble here? I'm trying to kind of work that in. Just scoosh it a little bit here and there. Okay, and another thing, anytime you need to stop and work with your fabric, if you don't want it to move, make sure that your needle is down in there. See, my needle's down in there, so I can lift this up, I can adjust this, and I'm not losing, I'm not going to stretch out my stitches or anything, okay? So here we go. Holding that down. Woo! Look at there. We're almost to the end. Now, as will happen sometimes, when I get to the end, I will show you. Okay, I have a little bit of an offset, okay? I will trim this off right now. If it's just, you know, a thread or two, I wouldn't worry about it. But that's, for some reason, a good 1/4 of an inch. So that might show. But anyway, now, here is what it looks like when our first 2 rows are put together. How about if I pan out some? Nope, that's in. Let's pan out so that you can see, okay? Now, you're going to do the same thing with all the rest of your rows, okay? Just keep sewing rows and then keep putting the rows together. And then the fun part, the part I really love, starts, okay? So go ahead, let me go ahead and finish the rest of this, and then I'll be back to show you how to make it raggedy, okay? Be back in a few. Okay, once you get your rows sewn together, however many rows you want, the last sewing step is to sew all around the outside edge. So we're going to start, and you'll notice I'm cheating. I don't have a whole quilt here right now. I've had a little oops on fabric, and I'll get to that. But anyway, however many rows you have, you're going to start at one corner at that 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you're just going to stitch all the way down and then turn, go all around all 4 sides, okay? So let me show you. You're going to open your seams out right here to sew across them. Let's get going. Okay. Just that 1/2 inch. Now when you get right here, this is when this spatula comes in extremely handy, because I can use it to just tuck that right under there and hold it down while it gets under there good. And that way I'm not endangering my fingers. Okay, this one's getting close, so I'm going to mash it down really good. And then hold it down under there. Whoops, sorry about that. I am sorry. It's really hard to video, and you have to be the person and the cameraman. So I'm going to hurry up. I want to get to the end here because I want to show you how to turn the corner in a continuous seam. Okay, holding it down. This is the last one. Let's get it up here. Okay. Once we get to this corner down here, I want to stop just about 1/2 inch from it, and I happen to know that that's just about at the end of my presser foot. Okay. Put the needle down. You want the needle down in the fabric. Lift your foot up. Now see, it's still holding it. Now twist it so that you're going the other direction. Check your edge to be sure that it lines up. Let the foot back down, and then you're ready to go in the new direction. Okay? And you're going to do this around all 4 sides. Now, once you get through with that, it's a whole new program. This is where the fun starts. We're going to clip all of these edges, okay? So, since I only have a piece of a quilt here, let me go ahead and finish this off, and I'm going to show you how to clip those edges. That right under there. And I will finish this. I just have to make another trip back to the fabric store because I ran out of the pink for the backing. Okay? So, now we're on to the clipping part. This is where it gets so fun. I see that my light is fading, so let me make a few adjustments and I'll be right back with you. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. Now to make the edges raggy. And I use these little snippers. These are amazing. You can do it with full-size scissors, but you have to be very careful. You have to be careful with these, because you don't want to snip something that you don't need to. But these are wonderful for this, especially if you're going to make 2 or 3 of these. You really want a pair of these. Now, first go around the edge, and you are going to snip. That's right, just cut it about 1/4 of an inch away. And I'm going to get just a little bit closer, because I want you to see what I'm doing. Don't cut into your seam. Just right up 2 or 3 threads close to it. Okay? All the way around. Now, if you do, cut into this, you're going to have to go back to your machine and sew over it, or put a drop of fray check right where you've snipped it. Otherwise, it'll start coming unraveled and everything will fall apart eventually. Now, you're also going to have to do this on all the seams here. So you're just going to slip up under there and cut all the way across. Just snipping, snipping, and I just usually like to sit down and watch TV and take my time, because this is where one little goof can make you have to spend a lot of time fixing it. Okay? All the way across. Now when you get to this part where the seam is folded, I just usually try to clip just as close, and sometimes I'll come under there and clip this. There's no exact right or wrong to this, because it's going to fray up, like I'll show you in just a minute, and you just want to have enough so that it ruffles. Okay? Once you get all of these seams done, you're going to be ready to throw it in the washer. And the more you wash it, the fuzzier it's going to get. Now let me warn you, when you wash it, especially the first couple of times, your lint trap is going to be full. So be sure that you check that and empty it, clean it out religiously. Another thing, you're going to need to, after you wash it and dry it the first time, take it outside and shake it, because there's going to be little pieces of fabric, little threads everywhere. Just take it outside and shake it really good, and then I would wash it again, take it outside, shake it again. After a few washes, that will stop and you'll have a beautiful quilt. Okay? Let me go wash mine, the other one I made, real quick, and I'll show you what it's going to look like once you get it washed. Okay, so here's what your finished quilt is going to look like after it's been washed a time and dried. And remember, after you dry it that first time, please go outside and shake it, because probably if I shake this enough, I've still got more little fringes coming off. The more you wash it, the more these seams get frayed. And let me bring it up close so you can see just how cute those frayed edges look. Isn't that sweet? And then this is what your back looks like with the nice flannel on here. And just have fun with this, okay? It's not an intensive project, but it is cute. People love these things. I just want you to have fun sewing. Don't listen to people that tell you all about all these rules and you have to do it this way. You have to do it however it takes to get the result that you want, and that's it. There's going to be people that watch this video and say, oh, she's doing that wrong, she's doing the other wrong. Well, it turned out just like I wanted, so it can't be that wrong. Please go to the Facebook link on the bottom and download. I've got the printables there with some extra tips, and you know, play with this. You can even cut out different shapes. I mean, you could do like triangles. I'm going to try one where it's diamonds all the way across. I don't know how that's going to work or not, but I'm going to give that a shot because I think that'd be interesting. Try all different kind of fabrics. Stick with a content that's cotton. I've seen people do it with 2 layers, you know, a cotton on the top and a flannel on the bottom. Just play around with it, you know, make a little 4-piece sample and see how that works. Okay, so check the links out at the bottom. Leave me a message, ask me a question, I'll try to get back to you. And it's been so much fun. Thank y'all for watching. Bye.